Hello YouTube, welcome back to A Chapter with Shelby. We are in a new corner of the same room because my last video, the sun was in the way and the background was boring. So I moved it to this side of my room, which has my bookshelf and some plants. And I think it looks better. I'm still working on like lighting and stuff, but so far I don't think it looks bad. So I think we have potential over here. Best life, best life, best life. I'ma keep going. Yeah. Today's video is going to be all fall cozy vibes because that's where we're at right now. We are at the end of October, and unfortunately, it just hasn't felt very fall. Like the leaves are where I'm at in Ohio. The leaves are just now starting to change, and the weather is consistently cold. But before, like summer was holding on way too long. It was like 80s only a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And that just like will not do for me for October. I feel like October was just wasted and I just want to redo, to be honest. But I have high hopes for November because November is still the fall time. We really only get 1 month of Christmas when we have like 2 months of fall, which I'm okay with. But now we really only have 1 month of fall because it's just now starting to get cooler and be really pretty outside. And so, yeah, still going to hang on to those fall vibes in November. Today's book recommendations for the fall include fantasy and romance and some kind of in between books, mostly from Alice Hoffman. And if you've read anything from Alice Hoffman, you'll know that like everything kind of centers around the fall time anyway, at least like fall spooky vibes without being like actually spooky. Like she's just an incredible writer, and a lot of the things I've read from her are definitely something you would read more in the cozy fall time. So the first book recommendation for the fall time, if you are starting a little bit later, is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. And I think most of us have watched this movie. It's wonderful. It's definitely a staple in the fall time. The book, I actually did not know there was a book until I got older because I watched Practical Magic, the movie, when I was really young. And so I was really excited to hear there was a book, not only a book, but basically a series. And so by the time I started reading Practical Magic, Alice Hoffman was coming out with the subsequent books to follow, which are all fantastic. They actually go in reverse order. So this one kind of begins in like the present time, and then all the books that come after are actually deeper and deeper into the past. If you've never heard of Practical Magic before, it's basically about two witchy sisters who face challenges as they go through some love obstacles in love, and in their relationship as well, because they're very different. They're sisters, but they are pretty different in personality and in life goals. These sisters have been cursed, not specifically them, but their entire family has been cursed. It says over 200 years ago, the Owens family was cursed by the original Owens sister, or Owen, I don't even know what she would be, like their aunt, their grandma, whatever. But because, like I said, these books go in reverse order, you actually get to see and read about the original, like the origin of the curse, which is really cool. And so again, this starts in the present time and kind of what those challenges, the curse brings to their family. And then every few decades, maybe a century. I honestly don't remember the chunks of time that pass by. I'm pretty sure it's like centuries though, because I know one is like kind of based World War II ish. That is it's a really good book. That one's called Lessons in Magic. That one was really emotional, like real emotional. So that one I think I gave like 5 stars when I read it. It was so good. My next cozy fall recommendation is more of a romantasy, even though it is slow burn and not romance in terms of spice, but you still get that juicy, tender, slow burn that like satisfies you just as much as like spice would. And I really appreciate authors who can do that. It is the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. These are not long books, like they're all the same, just about all the same size. This book is totally manageable. And so like normally when that happens, every book after gets significantly bigger, but that does not happen in this series. And so I finished this really quick, but Once Upon a Broken Heart is just, it's so sweet, and it has really good fantasy attributes to it. Like it definitely is, without there being like dragons and monsters and things like that. The back from BuzzFeed says an explosively rich fairy tale that takes place inside an intricate world that's weaved with fast-paced plot and intriguing twists. And the characters are so incredibly lovable. Not only is it slow burn, but it's enemies to lovers. And I'm just not realizing that this is the same author um, that wrote Caraval, which was another recommendation that I was going to put on this list. And I still will. But now I'm like, I get it, because the author, Stephanie Garber, it's like Caraval is very similar to this in terms of like, you still get that satisfaction from romance, from enemies to lovers, without there being any spice. And so if you don't enjoy a lot of spice in your books, then Stephanie Garber is definitely an author you would love. My next recommendation is The Simplicity of Cider. I read this book a long time ago, but I still remember so much about it, which rarely ever happens. The back says, fall in love with the simplicity of cider, the charming new novel by author of The Coincidence of Coconut Cake, about a prickly but gifted cider maker whose quiet life is interrupted by the arrival of a handsome man and his young son at her family's careworn orchard. I just remember there being a lot of imagery in this book, and it really added to the fact that this was based on a cider farm. And there was a little bit of like a magic element, even though it's not a fantasy by any means, but there is like it kind of gives you the feeling that there is magic somewhere in her bloodline, which makes her able to do the things that she does without there being an actual magic system involved. Again, pretty short book, and it's just so cozy. Again, like you can't go wrong with a book that's based on a cider farm where there's apples and it's in the fall and a little business is being run. Like it's really just like it's the cozy book of the season. Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe is very similar to A Simplicity of Cider in the sense that you can sense that there's a little bit of magic going on without that being the main part of the story. No magic systems or anything like that, or anything witchy going on, but it's very cozy again because it takes place at a cafe. The back from Christy Woodson says, full of family secrets, undeniable charm, and that particular touch of magic so often found in the South. Weber creates a town as dynamic and real as her characters. I savored every word. And that is a really great way to describe this book, that Southern magic without there being like anything witchy going on. There is a little bit of romance in this book as well, which I really loved and picked up on. And this is, again, one of those books I read quite a while ago, but still it stood out and stands out in my mind. I've recommended this book before. It's called What Lies in the Woods. This was a book of the month pick for me. This book is full of twists, and like obviously I can't recommend fall books without recommending some thrillers as well. This book is literally full of twists, and the imagery of it is like, because it's so twisty, because it's kind of dark, it literally reminds like reading this book reminds me of like running through the woods and twisting your ankle, and then you just like look up and you don't know where you are. Like it's not a long book at all, but so much happens in it. And I just remember like being really shook at the end of it. And most thrillers and suspense novels do that to me. It doesn't take much to um, get me into a place where I'm like biting my nails. So, but I loved this book. I think this was on some book of the year list for thrillers at some point. This book is a lot about friends keeping secrets. There was a murder, and like when they were younger, and then these kids were seen as heroes, but really they were lying the whole time. And again, not long, and so there's twists just like around every corner. And again, you can't go through fall and not read some thriller of some kind. This is definitely not a new recommendation. Like it's not a hot take by any means. I know probably a lot of people have already read this book, but it's The Silent Patient. Again, this is one of those things, like one of those books that I read and like a while ago and did not forget about. This is one of those books, like a mystery book, where you go through the entire story thinking that you know what's going on and you know how it's going to end. I remember being so certain that I knew how this book was going to end, to the point where I was like kind of disappointed that I figured it out so early. Like I was so proud of myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was way too easy to figure out. And now I just have to read the rest of the book knowing that I know what's going to happen. And I was so wrong. Dead freaking wrong. The back says criminal psychotherapist Theo Faber is captivated by Alicia's story and jumps at the opportunity to work with her. His determination to get her to talk and unravel the mystery of why she shot her husband will take him down a path more unexpected and more terrifying than he ever imagined. And that is so incredibly accurate. Again, a book that was incredibly popular and sold millions and millions of copies. But if you didn't get the chance to read it, or you just haven't heard of it, highly recommend for your TBR thriller list. I already mentioned this one, but I didn't realize that Stephanie Garber wrote two of my all-time favorite books, but Caraval was like a top read for me either this year or last year. I either read at the beginning of this year, I don't remember. It says a legendary competition, a mesmerizing romance, and unbreakable bond between two sisters. This is, again, not that long of a book, and there's just so much packed in it. I really enjoy books that are a little bit more subtle with their romance, like a slow burn, or again, like enemies to lovers, where they don't become lovers until like this much of the book. And a book that is a little bit more subtle with magic and the enchantment and stuff. Like I want to feel it rather than see it, if that makes sense. And Stephanie Garber, Alice Hoffman, they do such a good job with explaining and describing and just letting the reader feel, like basically get taken on a journey rather than being like, yep, they received their magic at 12 years old and it's always been like that. Like I like when it's a little bit deeper than that. But anyway, Caraval is very, very spellbinding. And I have the second book. I just haven't read it. I'm basically spending the rest of this year working through the series that I've started. I do have quite a few books that I have on my TBR, have had on my TBR for a long time that would be perfect for the fall time. But like I said, I think I'm a little more focused on finishing some series, like books and series I've read or started. There was a book, I forget which one it was. It could have been This Woven Kingdom, and I just didn't realize, like, oh, no. It was The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I think that's what it's called. I read the first two books, and then I kept seeing the third book at Target, and I just never picked it up. But I saw that she's writing a fourth, and so I'm like, gonna need to go and get the third so I can read the fourth. I don't think I thought there would be that many books in that series as there are / are going to be. But I kind of just want to wrap up some series that I've been reading because that feels really good when you do that. And so I've been reading a lot of trilogies, and so that feels really nice to like wrap up a whole world and character stories and things like that. So focused on that right now. My goal for November is to share some holiday reads because I personally read Christmas, winter-ish books probably from December to January. After that, I don't know. January is kind of hit or miss because I just go full-fledged. Like I read so much in January, like at the beginning of the year. And I know that Crescent City, the first book, is on my list, my like goal list for the beginning of the year because I haven't started that series and it's so long, and so I just like haven't wanted to commit to it, especially because a lot of the series I read are a little bit shorter. So not sure, but anyway, I'm hoping to pull some really good holiday recommendations from my past reads, and then the ones I'm looking forward to reading that I have on my TBR. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of the books that I've recommended, or if you have a book that, like, if you've kind of picked up the type of books that I like to read. If you have one that's very similar to that, please let me know because I love the vibes of like Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart. Like those are always going to be on my highly recommended list. I got my hair done today, and I was talking about how Stephanie Garber is a Christian, but she's not necessarily a Christian author. Like she doesn't have the like she doesn't write Christian books, but the themes are there. And a lot of the girls that I was talking to were like, I've been looking for books like that. And so even if they're not Christian, like I always recommend that series. I just think it's so, so good. And I like tore through it. I'm so glad all the books were already out when I started reading them, so I didn't have to wait for the sequels. But comment also like what your favorite book to read in the fall time or type of book, or do you reread a book in the fall or the winter time? Like I just want to know what everyone's vibe is, because it's different. Like some people stick to thrillers and suspense, some people never ever stop reading fantasy. I like to blend a little bit of everything because fall is just cozy, and romance, fantasy, and thrillers are all cozy. You can all put those in that category. So yeah, if you watch this video all the way through, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on A Chapter with Shelby.